Welcome back. I'm Nick Morgan, and this is Just One Question, as you probably know by now, because a friend of mine said these clips are binge-worthy, which I loved. So we're competing with Netflix now. I'm really excited to have a long-time friend. I was going to call him an old friend, but that would be to call me old because we're about the same age. So I'm not going to do that. A long-time friend, Angelo John Lewis. Angelo and I first met when both of us were doing other things a long time ago at Princeton University. Angelo has been doing some amazing things since I saw him last. He runs the Sacred Inclusion Network, which is a really cool group. He's a life coach, and he's the author of Notes for a New Age. And there's the fairy tale rule of threes satisfied, so we don't have to do that again. So Angelo, tell us, how the heck are you during this pandemic?
Nick, I think I'm doing pretty well relative to most of the people in the pandemic, so I don't really have any complaints. I mean, I live virtually most of the time anyway, so it's just the paranoia that I see when I walk around the streets that is a little troubling to me. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned to you before we started talking, I have a 96-year-old mother that I'm concerned about, but otherwise I'm doing well.
I'm very glad to hear that, and I share concerns. I have a 91-year-old mother, as you know, and she's coping, but having a hard time understanding why I can only see her through an open window, which is the current visiting program we have at the assisted living place she's in. But God bless both of them, and long may they continue to keep us honest, Angelo.
Yes.
And long may they continue to be stubborn. So I have just one question for you, and it's a little complicated. I have to prepare it. I have to prepare you and our listeners and viewers and it. So here's how it works. A long time ago, there was the bubonic plague. Humanity suffered a huge death rate, something like a third or to even a half of the population died. But afterwards, after we survived that horrific pandemic, the Renaissance happened. There was this huge explosion of creativity and new life and new ways of looking at things and new gender roles and all kinds of fluidity in parts of society that had been hitherto stratified and hierarchical. Looking at the early 1900s, we had the Spanish flu, again, a horrific pandemic. 50 million people died. And yet after that, we had the Roaring '20s. We had Bauhaus, and we had Art Deco, and we had speakeasies, and we had jazz, and we had this explosion of creativity. And so here we are again in a pandemic, and it is horrific, and many, many people have died, and many people are suffering, and yet we know this now. There will be an explosion of creativity and new life when it is finally done, whenever that is. And so my question to you is, what is going to be the shape of that new life when the creativity starts to unfold and people shed their fear and they come back from this? What are we going to see?
Well, the short answer is I don't know. I can tell you what I hope to happen.
Excellent.
I'm one of these people that thinks this is a ground shaking moment here. We have a lot of things going on. Yes, there's a pandemic. There's also the racial stuff that's happening, but there's other stuff in the background that are equally troubling, like climate issue, for example, income inequality. All these sort of issues. I think this moment is kind of like the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. So what I'm hoping to happen is that we realize that we're all connected, and we have to make some fundamentally different challenges that are different than the challenges that the responses that we faced before. So rather than thinking of this group or this person or that group as the other or the enemy, we have to realize that we breathe the same air to a certain degree, and actually, in reality, my fate is connected to those people's fate. So how do I respond to that? And that's the kind of question I ask myself that, and I'm hoping that we're all asking ourselves that.
Fantastic. From your mouth to God's ear, as the saying goes. I hope you're right. And wouldn't it be amazing if the result of all this suffering was something, a beautiful unflowering of interconnection, as you say? What's different now from those last two pandemics is that we have this admittedly imperfect, but genuine way of connecting all humanity. The internet and online communications. And yes, it's imperfect. I feel so strongly about that. I wrote a book about it 2 years ago about how imperfect it is. But nonetheless, it does level us to a certain extent and allow us all to be interconnected. And so maybe this is the first time we can find some combination of our uniqueness and our tribal ways of looking at things and our interconnection. So
yeah,
I hope you're right. I see you nodding. Do you think we have a chance, humanity?
I think we have a chance, and I want to put a shameless plug in there. If you go on Medium and you look for my little essay that says global community, tribal community, no, wait a minute, tribal community, universal community, hopefully that'll inspire you. If not, I can't help you.
Angelo John Lewis, who is always ready to help humanity. Angelo, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you again.
Hey, likewise, my brother.